States. It's Two States, the podcast returning. It's Two States. For tuning in, we say thank you. Two States is back from a 2-month hiatus. Now we're talking Star Wars. It's a Two States pod movie review.
Watershed, Bangkok's favorite YouTube show.
And we're back.
Wow, that was a long time.
It was a long time, though. What, 2 months?
I think it had been about 2 months. We talked right before you left, and for those joining, welcome to Two States. Welcome back. Today's the first day that Keith and I have talked, and I think it's been about 2 months. You've gone a lot of places since then. I've gone a handful of places. Do you want to say anything about your travels, or
Sure.
should we get to the topic du jour?
I'll first say to all of our listeners, podcast pod, diggy diggy podcast, and
Podcast.
I gotta challenge what you just said, Mike. So I think since we've last spoken, since we've last been here together on the Two States podcast, you've been to more states than I've been in countries. How about that? I'm pretty sure about that.
Well, you've been in more sovereign states than I have.
That's a fair statement. I just got back about 2 weeks ago after, pretty much the whole 2 months since we last spoke. I was traveling for my job and a number of different countries as we introduced in the last podcast, starting with Egypt and then Thailand. It feels great being back home, but it was a great trip.
I bet it does.
We've said
I've
too much
been
already.
in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Greenwich, Connecticut, Fredericksburg, Virginia, and Columbia, Maryland since. That's a random list, but they're all connected because they're basically all I-95.
That's 5
so
states,
I've just been kind of going up and down the East Coast for a while.
It's 5 states, and you also must have passed through... Well, I guess we'll get into that. But first, before we get into the trip, there's so much that's happened. There's so much going on.
It's the holiday season. This is the weekend before Christmas.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
We missed our opportunity to do a Hanukkah episode. Happy belated Hanukkah, Keith.
Thank you. Yeah, happy Hanukkah to you too. Great season of Survivor just ended. Serial is back. So much going on.
Serial's back. Bergdahl.
Yeah. It's been good so far. We'll talk about that at some point, but really what everyone's talking about right now, the biggest thing in the world right now, Mike, Star Wars is back.
Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
As much as it represented the beginning of, a new era of Star Wars movies, because there's going to be like one a year now for the rest of our lives. Right now that it's Disney, there's not just going to be 3 more. There's going to be a zillion more, like the superhero movies.
Yeah, they're going to do all those one-offs with a bunch of characters, and
there's at least I think already 5 or 6 or 7 already planned for the next 10 years. So there's so much more to come. But as much as this felt like the beginning of something new, it also for me kind of represented the end of something. And I don't know, I really didn't expect this to feel this way, but there was something about episodes 1 and 2 and 3 that I kind of felt myself missing.
I think Harrison Ford's probably pretty happy because...
Didn't he break a hip or break an ankle or something while filming?
I think he broke his leg, and I kept trying to watch that in some of the scenes where he was running. It would be like he would take a step, and then they would cut to someone else, and then he'd just sort of appear where they ran to.
And he's really old, I mean...
I heard a crazy fact that I didn't know before as a Star Wars fan, that the actor who plays Emperor Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid, is younger than Harrison Ford.
Interesting.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, I mean, he had on a lot of makeup, obviously. Yeah, I guess, I mean, it could have been a
Puts
full
it in
mask,
a lot of
but that
perspective.
it is.
Things also that I think this was like maybe the most self-aware Star Wars movie.
Yes.
I'm so glad they took it out of George Lucas's hands.
Absolutely.
And you can tell so much just like that this one stormtrooper is just like horrified by the slaughter that he's seeing his comrades carry out, and by the death of his friend, it looked like. So I really liked that. And then in that same scene, Poe Dameron, when he meets Kylo Ren, has that line where he's like, who should talk first? Should I talk first? Do you talk first? And I thought both of those things were kind of like different styles than in the other movies, and just kind of a nod to the audience that like, we know we're making this movie in 2015 and it's not going to have sort of the same mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah, where episodes 1 and 2 and 3 had absolutely no self-awareness whatsoever. I had that same thought, that this movie knew who the audience was, knew what the audience wanted, knew, where this series had been and where it was safe to go, where it was not safe to go. With that being said, I don't know. I still felt myself wondering, was it too safe? Like, there was just so much that was pulled straight out of episode 4, A New Hope. It was almost
I'm so glad you said that. Wasn't the structure and just all the settings, it was almost like they had just based it off the skeleton of A New Hope.
It was almost like a reimagining of A New Hope. There was Rey's origin story on the dust planet,
One of my bigger complaints, but it's not a complaint because it's something that I realize, like, these are fun, dumb movies and they're trying to just keep the plot moving, is like how they just transition between locations so quickly and like sort of without explanation. There was a lot more of that. And I think those are the kind of things that I have more of a pass on this time, because one, I can look back now as an adult and realize how goofy Star Wars actually is.
Yes, absolutely.
And how it's not really as deep as something like A Song of Ice and Fire, like the Game of Thrones series.
Right.
That just is so rich with detail and has so many levels. Like, it really is like a camp kind of action story,
Yeah. Yeah. I did really like the characters. I mean, that's the most important thing, right? Is establishing characters that people like and can relate to and want to keep going back to see over and over again. And I think this movie did accomplish that. And where they were like talking about, all right, so we got to shut down the shields. Then we got to hit it in the weak spot.
Yeah.
Then it'll blow up, and then we'll all come back here. That's the plan, right? Yep. All right, that's the plan.
That's the plan. All right.
All right,
So,
we got a plan.
They go, it uses the sun.
Yeah. Which one?
And like, even just saying the sun, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what system are we in?
Right.
And like,
At least be a sun.
is it?
Sure. Add that to the list too. There were some aspects of this movie which seemed kind of Harry Potter-y to me, and that was one of them. The new emperor is Voldemort too, by the way, right? It's like Voldemort is the new gigantic.
It's kind of like Voldemort. Like, he's got some holes in his face.
He kind of looks like a parade float. Like, he's that size. Like, why is he so big?
And his name is Snoke, which is kind of goofy. Like, every time Harrison Ford would be like, that's what Snoke wants you to think, I just like kind of laughed,
Kind of straight. I mean, I'm curious to know more. It's one more thing that, in the future episodes, I'm curious to understand more about who he is, how he got to be so big, if he has magical powers. But
I don't think he actually is that big. I think that was just a hologram.
It's the giant hologram? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that.
So do you have predictions for the rest of the trilogy? I thought this would be fun if we kind of sat down on recording some predictions for how this is all going to pan out, and then maybe years later we could come back and see how off we were.
I do tend to like the Rey Kenobi theory. I don't think Rey is Luke's daughter. I feel like
I don't think
they're
so
trying
either.
to get us to guess that, and then they're going to try to surprise us that actually that's not the case. It's something else. Like, do you think Kylo Ren survives past episode 8? Or will he die in episode 8?
In some ways, he's the main character of this movie.
Yeah.
So I think he has to I mean, because
I'll make that prediction. I think he's got a shelf life of at least 2 more movies.
Yeah,
I think the most likely
sure.
scenario for me is we see him die, or we see the end of his story, at the end of this trilogy, at the end of episode 9.
I think that's right, because they.
Anything else on Star Wars Episode 7? I feel like we've been around the sun on it a few times.
Just that it was, the sun, the one and only. How does it work? It uses the sun.
I don't know. I guess that's a good enough segue as any. Probably the best story from the entire trip around the world was for but it's a long story. I don't think we've got time for it.
Well, we got lots of podcasts in the future.
So,
and
let's just tease that now.
I think we really should dedicate the next couple episodes. We wanted to talk about Star Wars while it was fresh on our mind, but we got a lot of catching up to do, and I think we can dedicate a lot of episodes to your recent exploits.
There's a lot of stories to tell. It was, I'm so grateful to have been able to take the trip. And, it all started in Egypt. And,